You're probably thinking right now, man, you are so close to the camera. You're right. I am close to the camera. And kind of a new setup right now that we're trying out here on Pigskin Frenzy. If you're watching me on YouTube and you're seeing me on YouTube right now, you're thinking, whoa, you were up close to that camera. Well, there's a camera right in front of my face, and it's just pointing down at me, trying a new setup for Pigskin Frenzy, episode 187 of Pigskin Frenzy, may I add. If you're listening on audio, just do your own thing. Why not? You're listening in the car. You're listening at home on the Alexa. Hopefully that didn't go off. It probably did. But you know what I mean. Whole new setup. Got a whole new mic stand as well. We are ready to rock and roll. And we're talking about the College Football Playoff because we are finally back with our college football episode, and we are finally getting ready to rock and roll with Pigskin Frenzy, episode 187, college football and the College Football Playoff, finally recapping it on an episode. Welcome to Pigskin Frenzy on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon. Thank you for joining us. I'm Joel Norris, and whether you're watching on YouTube, listening on Spotify, listening on Podbean, listening on Apple, or listening on any audio platform, a big thank you for taking some time out of your Tuesday afternoon to just sit back, watch, and listen to some college football coverage presented by me. Now, after watching it on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, like each episode, leave comments down below. Spotify, Podbean, and Apple, all you got to do is just share around with others and follow on there as well. X, Instagram, and Facebook, just type in Pigskin Frenzy. Follow like the pages there. You're going to find all things on today on Pigskin Frenzy, my thoughts on everything for college and NFL football. You're going to find a trivia question on Instagram stories. Go and answer today's college football questions as well as all things up to date for Pigskin Frenzy. Guys, not Facebook. I keep saying Facebook. Let's just chill out on that. Let's just chill out on that. No, you're not going to see me on Facebook. No more Facebook for Pigskin Frenzy. Guys, the website, www.pigskinfrenzy.weebly.com. There you'll find all things up to date for Pigskin Frenzy. Home and About Me page. Learn more about me as your podcast host. You will find a contact info down below, name, info, email. I will answer it off air or on air if you need be. There's a platforms page. All the platforms I just mentioned, go and click on which one's your favorite listening style for Pigskin Frenzy. There's also a store and affiliations page. More on that coming soon as we continue to update the website on Pigskin Frenzy, www.pigskinfrenzy.weebly.com. And keep plugging in on X and Instagram at pigskin_frenzy. It has been a doozy getting to engage with you guys on there at pigskin_frenzy for X and Instagram because I love building community with you guys through this show. College football day today. We're ready to rock and roll. You're seeing me up close on YouTube. Well, like I said, new setup here for right now, and we are probably going to continue to kind of update it and experiment. I got some more equipment coming my way this week, so we're kind of going to, as I adjust this mic really quick here, kind of experiment with some new stuff here on the show and on Pigskin Frenzy. We're getting ready to rock and roll, man, because we just had an electric, and when I mean electric, I mean electric college football quarterfinal for the show. And not only just that, for in general, college football quarterfinals were electric. We had probably a game that we thought wasn't going to be close, very close, in Atlanta. That was probably the best college football playoff game out of this season's bracket and out of this season's playoff and out of this season's field so far. Every one of them, all the other ones have been blowouts and not been close. This one was the only one. Now, score-wise in the Sugar Bowl, of course, you could say, oh, it's been close. Yeah, sure, it's been close, but not on score-wise, not on the field. But on the field and score-wise, this game was pretty close, and we're going to talk about it here in a little bit. The Peach Bowl between Texas and Arizona State. Quite shocking what happened in Atlanta, and we're going to discuss it here in a little bit. We got four college football quarterfinal matches we're going to recap. We're also going to preview and predict the top matchups, the semifinals, the Final Four for the College Football Playoff, the Cotton Bowl Friday night at 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central on ESPN, and the Orange Bowl, which is Thursday night on ESPN, 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central kick for Thursday night. Two matchups, Final Four teams in it. January 9th and January 10th, the College Football Playoff, before we're just getting to the NFL playoffs as well. It is playoff postseason football and just in general, and that feeling is just exciting. So we are ready to rock and roll, and we're also going to discuss quite an interesting fact that I've been hearing a lot on social media, and that is the SEC dead? And I've been reading that. Dave Portnoy, credit to him for tweeting this. He thinks it is. Michigan alum, and not only that, the owner and presidente of Barstool Sports, Dave Portnoy, has said the SEC is dead. We're going to respond to that. Not really to Dave Portnoy itself, but we're going to respond to the whole notion that it is, because a lot of people agree with him on that. I want to give my thoughts on everything. So we're going to talk about that. Is the SEC really dead? And we're going to preview and predict the top matchups for the semifinals coming up this weekend. Let's get right to it and talk about the College Football Playoff Quarterfinals, because these games were quite interesting. And it was really interesting to talk about it and see it and discuss it and just talk about it and recap and kind of just take away from it on X. And I'm going to use some of my takeaways on X here in a little bit, but we're going to talk about this right now and discuss what's happening or what happened in these games. Let's kick it off with New Year's Eve. New Year's Eve, the Fiesta Bowl. Penn State, Boise State. I got all my games, got all games except for the Sugar Bowl right. 3-1 in my quarterfinal picks for the College Football Playoff. I've only gotten 2 games wrong total. And it's quite honestly kind of shocking, in my opinion, because I thought these games were going to be a little bit, some of them were going to be a little bit more close and predictable and unpredictable a little bit, but they really weren't. So I got 3 out of the 1 right in the quarterfinals and 2 wrong total. So I've been pretty accurate in these playoff field. Like I said, man, just come to me. Pigskin Frenzy at Pigskin_Frenzy on YouTube, on Instagram and X, and Pigskin Frenzy on all platforms, YouTube, audio platforms, Spotify, Podbean, and Apple and company everywhere else. And just listen to me on your Alexa. So why not? New Year's Eve, Fiesta Bowl, 31-14. And by the way, speaking of more plugs, thank you, by the way, 4,400 listeners. 4,400 listeners and counting on this show. Thank you so much for keeping on listening to Pigskin Frenzy. It has been remarkable. Fiesta Bowl, New Year's Eve, Penn State, Boise State. Could Penn State stop the run? Could they stop Ashton Jeanty? Jeanty got his. He did. He got his. Was it a lower game this go round? Probably, yeah, but it was still a really, really good game for Ashton Jeanty. I picked Penn State to win this ball game, and I got it right. Final score, 31-14. Penn State defeats Boise State. It wasn't close. Wasn't close. The Fiesta Bowl on New Year's Eve was not close. Penn State routed Boise State because of talent level, because of physicality, because of running the ball, because of everything in general. Defense was a key in this. They snagged 3 turnovers from Maddox Madsen in this ball game. Spencer Danielson and Boise State, I'm going to get to them I'm going to talk about them more in a minute, but I just want to credit them for what they accomplished and what they got to. And it is quite interesting that how they played in the first quarter, and I was in the second half as well. I think this game wasn't close, in a little bit. Like, I thought this was close. Excuse me. I thought this game was close, but also not really. So let me just tell you what I mean by that. I thought this game was close, as in I thought Boise State left it all on the line and what they all had, and they played close. They played physical and strong. However, I think that Boise was no match for Penn State. I think Penn State talent level on the field wise was just honestly better. They outmatched them, and I think that was the coin flip out of the game itself. Score wise, it didn't really seem it was close, but I think in some areas the game was close. I think they just got outmatched, and I think that's what it was. So it was half close, half not. Penn State 31, Boise State 14. Drew Allard in this game was an absolute madman. 171 yards, 3 touchdowns. How about Katron Allen and Nick Singleton? That rushing attack by this dynamic duo of running backs is absolutely insane. Katron Allen, 134 yards and 17 carries, 7.9 yards per rush. You also had Nick Singleton have a touchdown, 87 yards, 12 carries. Unbelievable, right? I mean, unbelievable. They did really, really good on the ground. They put up on Boise State total rushing, 216 rushing yards on this Boise State defense. Boise State only put up 108 yards. Defensively, unbelievable as well. Tyler Warren was the pretty much the MVP besides the running backs in this ball game. 63 yards, 6 receptions, and 2 touchdowns. Tyler Warren was a madman. Evans had 55 yards, a touchdown, 2 receptions. Wallace had 37 yards, 3 receptions. And Drew Allard played really, really well as well. Reynolds had 16 yards also. Just if you want to look at everything, Vanover had a sack. They had multiple sacks, like 3-4 sacks. Rojas, 7 total tackles. Reed had 8 total tackles. King had 8 total tackles, 3 interceptions. Tracy had an interception. Wheatley had an interception. And it was literally like, you get a pick, you get a pick, and you get a pick for the Nittany Lions defense. Let's talk about the team total stats on paper. Boise got dominated on paper as well. No, well, not really. I was like dominated on paper. I would say in some areas they got dominated on paper. 387 total yards for Penn State compared to Boise State's 412. So I would say domination, but I got that wrong. But they did good total yards wise. Passing yards, 304 Boise State. Drew Allard, 171 passing. So Boise State did better total yards and passing. Now rushing and yards per play, all Penn State. 216 rushing compared to Boise State's 108. 5.9 yards per play compared to Boise State's 5.5. 5 for 13 on third down. They did really, really good on third down. I would say those are some of the positive circle moments for this team, and they snagged 3 interceptions. 4 turnovers total. 1 fumble, 3 interceptions. They snagged 4 turnovers in this ball game. Those are some of the positive circle moments for this Penn State team, and they were very physical up front, and they showed physicality against this team. So, if you look at it that way, that's some positive circle moments. Some negative circle moments, 10 penalties for 98 yards. Wow. They got to clean that up for Thursday night in the Orange Bowl. Penn State does. They have to clean that up because they're not going to beat a tough Irish team with those type of penalties. So, if you want to look at the penalties in there, they got to clean that up. They got to get that done, and they got to just simmer down on that. Other than that, everything's fine in Penn State's world. That's probably the only negative circle moment that we could come away with in this ball game. Penn State, you're going to think, well, who did they beat to get to the semifinals? They beat an SMU team that shouldn't have belonged in the playoff, and then Boise State shouldn't have belonged in the playoff. They showed it. I think Boise State played better than SMU did in a lot of areas. Did they get through? Did they turn the ball over 4 times against Penn State? Yeah, they did. But they showed some toughness up front. They scored and they kept up with them really on the field wise, at least, up until the fourth quarter. And then Penn State ran away with it even more in the fourth quarter. So, yeah, they did. But this was a good Boise State team that Penn State beat. And Penn State is a pretty solid team right now, especially on the ground. I think on the ground is where they're most dangerous. And I think if they rely on that strength, they rely on their defensive front, and they rely on their physicality up in the middle on defense, and they the dynamic duo of Singleton and Katron Allen with a play-action, pro-style passing attack with Drew Allard. This team could do a lot. Could really do a lot. They really could. They could do a lot. So I think that if they do that, I think everything could be fine for this team. So right now, can Penn State make it to the national championship? Who knows? Who really knows if they can make it to the national championship? We're going to find that out Thursday night. But I'm going to tell you what, this team's dangerous, especially on the ground. So keep note, if you're the Irish, Notre Dame Fighting Irish this Thursday night. Penn State was dangerous. They played dangerous. They played really, really tough. Let's see if they can make it to the national championship in this ball game come Thursday night. They have them in the Orange Bowl, 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central kick Thursday night in the Orange Bowl in Miami. Let's see if Penn State can handle business. Final score was 31-14. They defeat Boise State in the Fiesta Bowl quarterfinal college football playoff. Let's talk about Boise State. And let's discuss everything there with Boise State. Ashton Jeanty was 28 yards away from breaking Barry Sanders' record in this ball game. They did all that they could. They simply got outmatched. What I love about this is that Spencer Danielson said that they were going to rely on the Lord and they were going to rely on going out there and executing, and that they have faith in Jesus, and they were winners off the field in life regardless of this game. I admire Spencer Danielson. I admire him because he's a man of faith. He trusts in Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior, and he relies on faith alone. Listen, Spencer Danielson in this game proved that there's something bigger out there than football, and that's, staying the course through life. When I say stay the course after every show, I mean it. Stay the course in life, running that race that God has called you towards. And I think that's the biggest calling that we can have as followers of Jesus. And I think that Spencer Danielson has kind of lived up to that example and set that example as Boise State's head coach, especially on and off the field for this team. So I applaud Spencer Danielson in this game, and I applaud this team for going out there and trying to fight and relying and saying that we're winners off the field with Jesus. So applaud him for that. Let's talk about the game, but I just applaud Spencer Danielson for being a man of faith and teaching and instilling the Lord and Jesus in these young kids and these college kids and this team in this Fiesta Bowl and throughout this playoff and out this season. Just a round of applause for Spencer Danielson for sure. Let's talk about Boise State in this game, and let's talk about Boise overall. Maddox Madsen did not have the best game. 3 interceptions, 1 touchdown, 304 yards. He was 23 for 35. Genty had 104 yards, 3.5 yards per rush, and 30 carries. Crow had a touchdown, 8-yard rush. Lauder had a touchdown, 96 yards, 4 receptions. He did well. Camper, 66 yards, 3 receptions in this ball game. If you want to look at the defense, Benefield had 9 total tackles. Oladipo had 5 total tackles. They got to Drew Allard a lot, actually. If you want to look at everything, they had 3. They had let me see, 3, 4, 5. They had about 4.5, 5 sacks in this ball game to Drew Allard. So they pressured Drew Allard a lot. The defensive line pressured them a lot. I think I could add that as a negative circle moment for Penn State's offensive line. I think Penn State's offensive line did not hold up, and that's going to be a cause of concern for Thursday night. So we can add that here in a little bit when we talk about the game. But Boise State's defensive line beat them in a lot of areas. They gave it all they could in this ball game. They just could not out-physical them later in the game and could not stop their rushing attack. Their rushing attack was just too dynamic. If you want to talk about some positive circle moments, the sacks, the defense played a really, really physical. Genty did his absolute best. 108 yards, 304 passing. They had 412 total yards in this ball game. They did everything that they could to win this ball game. So if you want to look at everything there and look at how Boise State played with some heart and they showed some heart, that's a positive circle moment in this ball game for the Broncos. They were 8 for 16 on third down, so 50% on third down, or almost half, almost 50% of third down, 18 for 16 for third down. If you want to look at the negative circle moments, obviously the 4 turnovers are the negative circle moment, along with their penalties. 13 penalties for 90 yards in this game. It's not good for Boise State overall. Those are the negative circle moments, and those are game killers for the Broncos. And I think that's what happened in this ball game. I think if you want to look at if you want to look at those as the negative circle moments and pinpoint that at what went wrong in this game, you can see it right there. 4 turnovers and 13 penalties for 90 yards. That's as clear and cut as it gets here on Pigskin Frenzy, ladies and gentlemen. That's the negative circle moments for this team. So, and that's pretty much it. Here's what I admire about Boise State and what they did this season. They showed heart. They had probably one of the most dynamic running backs in college football that we have seen in a long time. For crying out loud, he was a Heisman finalist, finished second in the Heisman voting, and he was 28 yards away from breaking Barry Sanders' record. 28 yards away from breaking Barry Sanders' record. That's just quite incredible. Honestly, if you want to look at it, quite incredible in this state of mind, in this frame. So if you want to look at everything, if you want to see a dynamic running back, you look at guys like Barry Sanders, you look at guys like Herschel Walker, you can look at guys like Leonard Fournette, Nick Chubb, Gurley, Adrian Peterson, Darren McFadden. Genty is on that list. He is on that list now. He is an absolute animal. Ashton Genty, probably one of the best running backs we've seen in quite some time in college football. And round of applause for what he did against a Power 4 defense there. He got 104 yards on this defense, and this defense is quite something. They're physical, they're tough, and they were wondering, what is Jeanty going to do against a power forward defense? Did he average a season low or a season low today? Yeah, or in that game? Yeah, he did. But he still put up 104 yards. That just goes to show how dynamic Ashton Jeanty is overall. Boise State finishes their season as the Mountain West champions. They finished their season 12-2, and we will see what they do next year as they replace Jeanty and a lot of their guys on the team. Final score, 31-14. Penn State goes to the semifinal. Boise State ends their season in Arizona. A round of applause for Boise State for making it and doing really trying their best in this game. Boise State 14, Penn State 31. Penn State's got a huge contest Thursday night against Notre Dame in the Orange Bowl, College Football Playoff Semifinal. We're going to see how it all shapes up Thursday night in the semifinal on ESPN there. So that was the Fiesta Bowl. Let's talk about the Peach Bowl, because that game was the best game I've seen, probably one of the best games I've seen all year. It will go on the Pigskin Frenzy list of top 50 games for the 2024 season. Hands down, no questions asked. It will, because it was. It really was. And we should start that right after the national championship, after the Q&A episode of the next week. We will start that. So 2 weeks after the Natty, we will start that. Let's talk about the Peach Bowl as I get my notes ready and get everything going. Let's talk about that game because it was insane. Peach Bowl on New Year's Day, 39. The final score was 39-31. And you're gonna think, okay, Texas was gonna rout them. They were gonna blow them out, rout them. Everything was just on the table there. A complete mismatch. I mean, Texas is going to dominate them. At first, Texas was. They were dominating them on all aspects of the ball. It was literally, if you want to look at it, it was like, I think 17 to 8 at half, 17-18 at half, and Texas defense was all over them. Texas ended up scoring late, making it 24-8 in this ball game, and after that, I mean, it was all Texas until the early fourth quarter, and Texas ended up letting their foot off the gas. They quit playing, and then Arizona State scored 16 unanswered, and they tie it. Make it 24-24. Quinn Ewers throws a pick. They show signs of life. I mean, first off, let's just backtrack a little bit. First off, Arizona State, Cam Scattaboo does a touchdown pass to, let me see. He throws it to, as I look on my notes, Cam Scattaboo throws a touchdown pass, a 42-yard touchdown pass to Malik McLean, and McLean catches it. Scattaboo can do it all, ladies and gentlemen, finishes 5th in Heisman, and then all of a sudden after that, he receives the ball, 99 yards receiving, and then after he catches it, he runs it in for a touchdown, ties the game after Ewers throws a pick, and it's 24-24, and then all of a sudden, we find life. It goes into overtime. Arizona State scores 31-24. Texas scores 31-31 as they were about to stop them. Matthew Golden comes in clutch. Then Texas scores 39-31, goes for 2 in double overtime. Then Arizona State ends up getting stopped. And final score game-winning interception, in the end zone. Final score, Texas 39, Arizona State 31 in double overtime. And Texas is going to the Cotton Bowl Friday night in the semifinal. Texas wins. I got that one right, but it was closer than advertised. Texas played good up until the early fourth quarter, and then Arizona State comes back and wins through the heart of Sam Levitt and Cam Scattaboo. Cam Scattaboo was the best player, and he deserved to win MVP, no doubt. And he was the Chick-fil-A MVP, the Peach Bowl MVP. He was. They gave it to him after the game, and he was on the losing team. Cam Scattaboo had 143 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 30 carries. 99 yards, 8 receptions, and a 42-yard touchdown pass to Malik McLean to put them in a position to come back. I normally talk about winners, and I will get to Texas here in a little bit, but let's just talk about Arizona State first. Let's do something different first, and let's talk about the losers first. Cam Skattebo played out of his mind to get them, and he threw up. He was sick. He drank a lot of water. He got sick on the end zone and I think he threw up in a garbage bucket or bucket or something, and then ended up coming back and playing lights out. He showed a true heart of a warrior, and honestly, he's a first-round draft pick, hands down. Cam Skattebo, the second best running back in this NFL draft class, and he's the second best running back in college football, and he showed it in this ball game. Cam Skattebo played lights out, and Sam Leavitt, let's not discard Sam Leavitt, 222 yards. He didn't have a touchdown, but my Lord, he played lights out to get him in that position. The honest thing was, should Arizona State should have been in the semifinal? Who knows? Was it targeting? That was the main question out of that play. It was a huge targeting call late in the game. Could have put Arizona State in a prime position to kick a field goal to win the game. Burt Auburn missed 2 field goals in this ball game to send them in overtime as well, so it wasn't a good kicking day, a special teams day for Texas. But was it targeting? I thought it was, and it was targeting in my honest thoughts. But here's the deal. If you want to look at it, here's the deal. Arizona State played lights out regardless, and they could have won regardless. I think Sam Leavitt had a game-ending interception, and Texas played good defense late in the ball game, and they came out. But Arizona State, it could have been a targeting. And I feel like that's a whole other conversation about the refs. I've said it. We've needed full-time officials in this league. We need full-time officials in college football. We need full-time officials in football, period. But we need them in college football, hands down. They have the money. Let's spend the money on full-time officials and not let games be decided like this, because Arizona State probably could have won the game if the targeting was called, because it was targeting, but there was no targeting called. It's hearsay at this point. But Arizona State played lights out, and they played their hearts out in the second half. They deserve to be in the college football playoff. Y'all can say that they lost all this. They deserve to be there. They played their hearts out. Did they not play good in the first half? No. They were capitalizing on their drives with 3 points. Then they started capitalizing their shots on touchdowns eventually, and Cam Skattebo put the game on his back, and they showed that they belonged in the 12-team playoff, and they stepped up physically to Texas because they beat them up physically in the game as well. So as I drop my pen here on the show, like always, drop my pen here. But anyway, they showed that they belonged, and they stepped up, and they also stepped up. They stepped up to Texas physically. That was quite remarkable in this game. Quite remarkable that they stepped up to them physically. And I admire what they did there. I admire that they stepped up to them physically. I admire that they were up to par there physically with Texas. I admire that, quite honestly. I really do. And Arizona State is going to be good next year. They are going to show that they are a team that they could compete in the Big 12 again. Kenny Dillingham is going nowhere, and he's got them in a prime spot to do well with Sam Leavitt and now Army transfer running back Cam Udo now there in Tempe, Arizona. So final score was 39-31. Arizona State finishes their season 11-3. Take nothing away from them. They played their hearts out, and they deserve to be in that Big 12 or in that 12-team playoff as the Big 12 champions. So 39-31. Let's talk about Texas before we move on. Texas played really, really good in the first half. They showed why they were a very dominant team and have a dominant roster. Steve Sarkisian is a heck of a coach. They just got complacent in the second half, and especially in the fourth quarter. They played good all 3 quarters except the early part of the fourth quarter, and then they just kind of got complacent. 24-8. All right, we're going to let our foot off the gas. We're going to run the clock out, try to play ball control, and not only try to play ball control, we are going to we're just going to ice it that way, and everything's going to be good in that area. And then Arizona State came back, and y'all paid for it. You don't do that to a team like Arizona State. They started getting complacent. They started playing sloppier. Matthew Golden was really the savior of this offense. I mean, Quinn Ewers had 3 touchdowns, 322 yards, 20 for 30. Weiser, 45 yards, 18 carries. Ewers had a rushing touchdown. He played lights out there. He had 4 total touchdowns and 322 passing yards. Golden and Gunnar Helm were amazing. Moore, a touchdown, 25 yards, 2 receptions. Wingo, 33 yards. Weiser had 40 yards and 4 receptions. Gunnar Helm, 56 yards, a touchdown, 3 receptions. Matthew Golden, a touchdown, 149 yards and 7 receptions. Matthew Golden was an absolute madman in this ball game here in the Peach Bowl. He played lights out. He really did. He honestly was the savior of this offense. He averaged 21.3 yards receiving. I mean, that's on average. Unbelievable. I mean, Matthew Golden was the savior of this. And Quinn Ewers did not have a bad game. You're going to think Quinn Ewers was horrible. He had a horrible fourth quarter and got complacent. So did Sark. Sark did not coach good in the fourth quarter of this ball game. He let Arizona State come back. If they would have not taken their foot off the gas, this game would have not been in double overtime. Or, I mean, it could have been. I mean, who knows? Arizona State's a good team. I'm not discrediting anything. Kenny Dillingham and what they've done. You just heard me for the past 10 minutes talk about Arizona State. But if you look at Texas, they were dominating this game early. And they could have been a lot better and a lot more of a blowout if Texas could have just kept their foot on the gas pedal. Physically, they were dominating them the whole game. If you look at on paper, Arizona State ended up coming away with a lot. I mean, 510 total yards compared to Texas's 375. Passing, Texas 322. Arizona State, 296 passing. Rushing, 214 compared to Texas's 53 rushing yards. And then yards per play, 6.3 compared to Arizona State's 5.3. I mean, third down efficiency, 5 for 13. They were 100% on fourth down. They look good overall. I mean, they only had one blemish, was that interception. The only negative circle moment was they took their foot off the gas in the fourth quarter and 10 penalties for 67 yards. They cannot do that Friday night because they cannot afford to do it. And I will talk about that Cotton Bowl here in a little bit because we're going to go into depth with it. But they cannot do this Friday night. If they do it, they're screwed. Hands down, they're screwed. They cannot do that. I'm glad I'm eye level. I'm glad I have this new camera because it is insane for you guys to know how serious I am right now. Texas cannot let their foot off the gas Friday night. It is important and vital. I'm going to talk about that Cotton Bowl here in a little bit, but they got to get better at playing 60 minutes of football all 4 quarters. Final score, 39-31. This was the best playoff game I've seen probably in quite some time, but this was the best playoff game so far in the 12-team field. 39-31, Texas defeats Arizona State, and Texas moves on to the Cotton Bowl Friday night. And they are going to have a good game ahead of them. So we're going to figure out what happens there. Arizona State finishes their season strong, but Arizona State, they're a team that is going to be a force to be reckoned with in the Big 12 next season. Watch out for the Sun Devils and Kenny Dillingham. They are for real, and they are recruiting like it in the portal and recruiting like it in high school recruiting as well. That was the Peach Bowl. 2 more quarterfinal matchups that we're going to recap, and let's talk about, honestly, 33 minutes. We're not bad here into this episode. Let's talk about the Rose Bowl game. Ohio State, Oregon. Ohio State, Oregon. The Rose Bowl game in Pasadena on New Year's Day. College Football Playoff Quarterfinal Rose Bowl game. Ohio State, Oregon. The rematch of what was probably the best regular season game of this 2024 season. I said Ohio State. I said this on social media if you didn't keep up, that Ohio State was going to beat Oregon. I didn't think Oregon was going to win this game after the way Ohio State played against Tennessee. Everyone's going to say that Oregon was better than Tennessee, that Ohio State was in for a tough game. I thought they were too. I thought it was going to be a lot closer than it was. But Ohio State Final score, Ohio State 41, Oregon 21, a 20-point win for Ohio State over Oregon. Oregon is out. The number one team is out, and Oregon ends their season at 13-1. Let's talk about Ohio State. If you're not seeing, I don't know if you guys saw this on social media, on Instagram, on X, if you're not seeing it there, if you did not see it at all, and you did not see what happened before what Ohio State posted and what happened on there, I'm going to tell you this. Go and look it up on their football page on Instagram and their football page on X. What happened beforehand? I hadn't seen Ryan Day look like that in a long time. Ryan Day was fired up. Ryan Day usually in the locker rooms is like, let's play for 60 minutes. He was screaming, fired up, pumped, red-faced. Ryan Day is trying to silence all the haters. He has gone nuclear. He went nuclear a year ago with this portal class, with this recruiting class. He's got the best freshman wide receiver and probably the best receiver on God's green earth and in college football right now, and Jeremiah Smith. They have gone, and they were fired up. They were fired up, and they played like it for 4 quarters in the Rose Bowl. Ryan Day has gone nuclear. Ryan Day is showing everybody why you need to quit doubting him and why you need to trust the process right now. At half, it was 34-8. 34-8 at halftime. 34-8, and it was late. But if they wouldn't have scored late, Oregon wouldn't have scored at the very last second at the first half. It would have been 34-0 at half. Ohio State was all over them on special teams, offense, and defense. Will Howard, Jeremiah Smith, they could not stop Jeremiah Smith. Jeremiah Smith was the player of the game on offense. Jack Sawyer on defense was going off and breaking their offensive line down. They were a physical football team. They out-physicaled them. They outstretched them. They just destroyed them on all facets of the game. Ohio State was the better football team, and I picked them to win the Big Ten, and I also picked them to beat them earlier on in the season. Did they win that game? No. Oregon won the Big Ten, and Oregon beat them in the regular season matchup as well. I said whoever was going to win that game was going to win the Big Ten and was going to be the number 1 seed in the College Football Playoff, and Oregon was. Did I pick Ohio State to win this ball game? Yes, because I watched the Tennessee game. Ohio State is starting off fast, and it's showing in this game. Let's look at their stats. Will Howard, 3 touchdowns, 319 yards, 17 for 26. Trevion Henderson, 94 yards, 2 touchdowns, 8 carries. Judkins, 85 yards, 17 carries. Jeremiah Smith had a 5-yard run. Jeremiah Smith, 187 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 7 receptions at 19 years old. Freshman, 6'4", big hands, 215 pounds, big hands. He's got draft comparisons like a Terrell Owens and a Julio Jones from Alabama and the Atlanta Falcons days. That is high praise for a 19-year-old freshman receiver that's been dominating the Big Ten and dominating in big-time games all year. Buka, 72 yards, a touchdown, 5 receptions. G. Scott Jr., a 30-yard reception. Cody Simon, absolutely bananas. He had 2 sacks, and he had 11 total tackles, defensive player of the game. JT Tumalayo, 3 total tackles. Jack Sawyer had 2 sacks and 2 total tackles as well. This defense was lighting them up the middle and on the defensive line. They were breaking them down. Ransom had a sack, and he also had 7 total tackles up front. This defense was electric all over the run. They did not let Oregon run the ball. They didn't let them pass good. they didn't get any turnovers. Oregon didn't turn the ball over, luckily, but they just got out physicaled. Sacks galore, beating them up on the offensive, beating up their offensive line, getting to the quarterback, pressuring Dylan Gabriel, shutting down the run. I mean, shutting down the run. They had negative 23 rushing yards. They couldn't run the ball at all. They shut the run game down 100%. Jack Sawyer and this defense was all over the run. This defense was impressing me. Like, for real, Jim Knowles' defense was quite impressive in this ball game. Ohio State, honestly, was just impressive. Honestly, they were. Those are the positive circle moments. 500 total yards compared to Oregon's 276, 319 passing compared to Oregon's 299, 181 rushing yards, which Ohio State hadn't ran the ball well that much all year. But in these playoffs, Henderson and Judkins are having no problems moving the ball on the ground. 181 yards rushing, negative 23 rushing for Oregon. What a stat. And then this is a stat right here. Watch this, or listen to this. 8.8 yards per play compared to Oregon's 3.9 yards per play. The only negative circle moment I can think of is 4 for 11 on third down. They got to get better at converting and completing their drives on third down. Other than that, they look good on all aspects of the ball. Offense, defense, and special teams. The biggest stat that I can think of for this Ohio State team was negative 23 rushing yards. They completely shut the running game down. Like, unbelievable. Unbelievable this Ohio State defense was. Jeremiah Smith is an absolute animal on offense. Will Howard playing lights out for this offense. This is a talented team. I said this a year ago about Ohio State and Ryan Day. I said when they were building that class as Michigan was winning the national championship, yes, did they lose to this? Have they lost to Michigan this past season? Yes, they've lost 4 years in a row to Michigan, and it eats them alive. But I said, and I said this, that if Ohio State, with the talent that they got, are coached well by Ryan Day and this coaching staff, with Chip Kelly on offense, Jim Knowles on defense, Brian Hartline as the receivers coach, coaching pro level, Jeremiah Smith, and what they're doing on all aspects of the ball, talent wise, this is the most talented team, the number one composite talent team in college football. If they are coached well, they are going to win the national championship. I have a clip of that last year. I can find it posted on there. It was from a year ago. And I've said it all off season that this team was probably going to be in the national championship game and could win the national championship, and Ryan Day could eclipse, and Ryan Day could finally get his first national championship, and Ohio State can finally win the national title and bring a title back home to Columbus. I said that. And guess what? They are now 2 games away from doing that. They got to get past Texas Friday night at 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central in the Cotton Bowl semifinal on ESPN. They have a tough Texas team. They have started off hot. White hot in the first half of both both Tennessee and Oregon. They are dominating the playoff field right now. They are outmanning and outgunning both Tennessee and Oregon, and they're outgunning everybody in the college football playoff. Why? Because they are the best team in college football right now. Mic drop. Hands down. There's nobody better than Ohio State at football right now in college football. They are the best team. They are looking undeniable, and they are looking hungry, like they are ready to win the national championship. Ryan Day's proven something right now. He is on a mission to prove that I can win a national title as a head coach. I went in 2020. It wasn't my year. Nick Saban beat me, but guess what? I'm coming back despite losing, despite not winning the Big Ten, despite not beating Michigan in 4 years. I am going to prove now that in this 12-team playoff that I, with the talent that I've spent with NIL and recruiting with NIL and paying these guys great money in the Big Ten, I am going to march my way to Atlanta, Georgia, and win the national championship. They got to get past Texas and Dallas Friday night. Can they do that? I don't know. We'll see. We got to see on ESPN, but I'm going to tell you this. This team's hungry, And this team looks like they are ready to win a national championship. Final score was 41-21. Ohio State dominated Oregon, and it wasn't close. Let's talk about Oregon, because I just went on and on and on about Ohio State and how they are the best team in college football right now. Oregon did all that they could at first, or in the second half at least. They couldn't run the ball. Negative circle moment there. Let's talk about their stats really quick. Dylan Gabriel, 29 for 41, 299 yards, 2 touchdowns. Some decent stats in the game. Not great, but not terrible as they were trying to come back. Jordan James, 14 yards. Limar, 4 yards, 2 receptions. Noah Whittington had a rushing touchdown, 3 yards rushing on the ground, 6 carries. Trayshawn Holden, 116 yards, 2 touchdowns, 7 receptions. Terrence Ferguson. Going back, Terrence Ferguson had 71 yards, 5 receptions. Tez Johnson, 32 yards, 5 receptions. Noah Whittington, 30 yards, 6 receptions there. Defensively, they played solid defensively in the early part of the third quarter and got some good stops. They got some good stops against Ohio State's, on third down against Ohio State. They just couldn't capitalize themselves. The Ducks had a physical defense. Botcher had 7 total tackles. Reed had 5 total tackles. Jabbar Muhammad had 5 total tackles. Got some good stops on third down on defense against Ohio State, but Ohio State just kept capitalizing more on first and second down with big chunk plays, and they kept giving up big chunk plays. They had trouble stopping Jeremiah Smith. They had some trouble stopping Travion Henderson and stopping Judkins on the ground, and they had trouble stopping Will Howard, because Will Howard on first and second downs was just lighting them up with big chunk plays, and Oregon's defense couldn't stop those. But on third down, Oregon's defense looked good. They played physical and as physical as they could, but Ohio State just outmanned them and outmatched them on the field, coaching and talent wise. Let's talk about their team stats really quick before I go into Oregon really quick. Negative circle moment, obviously, was the negative 23. They could not run the ball at all in this game. 8 for 19. Positive circle moment, 2 for 3 on fourth down. 3 penalties for 13 yards. Not bad at all. And against this tough Ohio State team, they didn't turn the ball over. So those are some positive circle moments for this Ducks team. I think running the ball put a huge damper on it, and they just got outmanned. I think those are some negative circle moments for this team, but they just got outmanned. Let me tell you about Oregon really quick before we move on to this Sugar Bowl and before we talk about and preview and predict the semifinals for this game. This team here is not going anywhere. Dan Lanning has a top 10 transfer class, a top 5, I believe, top 5 high school recruiting class. This team's not going away. This team's not going away at all. This team is going to be a solid football team for years to come. They're not going away. They're not going away. Despite them losing this Rose Bowl game, they're going to be consistently in it, in the Big Ten title hunt, in the playoff hunt. This team's not going anywhere, and eventually, if Dan Lanning keeps at it, Oregon will win a national championship in the future with Dan Lanning as head coach. They will do it because Oregon is a solid program, and the way they are building and using their resources, they're using it right in today's day and age in college football. He's a good coach, physical coach, a coach that you could run through a brick wall for, and he's going to build a talented team, a team that's going to be talented than Ohio State, Georgia, LSU, or Alabama in most years, and even Georgia in most years. They are going to be a talented team, and they're going to out-talent some of these teams eventually. Just this year wasn't that year. Granted, they went 13-1 with the talent that they got and made it to the Rose Bowl and the College Football Playoffs and got the number 1 seed and won the Big Ten championship. So do not hate on Oregon at all, because they deserve to be where they're at. They just got outgunned by a better and talented football team and a hungrier football team in Ohio State in this game. Oregon is here to stay. I'm warning you guys, do not discredit Oregon after this football game. Final score, 41-21. Ohio State defeats Oregon. Oregon finishes off a pretty remarkable season at the Rose Bowl. Ohio State's got Texas in the College Football Playoff Semifinal Cotton Bowl Friday night, 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central on ESPN. Ohio State and Texas, an interesting matchup to see who's going to go to Atlanta for the national championship on January 20th. And we are covering these college football playoff football games. Moving on, the last quarterfinal game, let's talk about it. The All-State Sugar Bowl, the College Football Playoff Quarterfinal All-State Sugar Bowl between Notre Dame and Georgia. I picked Georgia to win this football game. I picked them to win overall. And, well, quite shocked because that's not what happened at all. Final score, Notre Dame, Notre Dame 23, Georgia 10. Notre Dame 23, Georgia 10. I said that Georgia was the most physical football team in this field, and they sure did not play like it in this game. I got this game wrong. Notre Dame out-physicaled them in New Orleans on the line of scrimmage, on both sides of the line of scrimmage. Offensive line, defensive line, they out-physicaled them and out-muscled them up front. They ran the ball better than Georgia. Georgia couldn't run the ball well. Georgia's play calling was off. Notre Dame's play calling was up point. Marcus Freeman, and I can't believe I'm saying this, Marcus Freeman out-coached Kirby Smart. Marcus Freeman out-coached Kirby Smart, and they were better than Georgia in this ball game. Notre Dame is a for real team and a team that I would keep an eye on to go and win the national championship. Or not just win the national championship, but to play in the national championship game. Point blank, Notre Dame has got the tools to go into the national championship and do it. So let's see what happens in this game, or this game Friday night. I'm curious to see what Notre Dame does, but let's talk about Notre Dame here and some of the ways that Marcus Freeman outcoached Kirby Smart. Really quick, let's go with stats. Riley Leonard, 15 for 24, 90 yards, and a touchdown. Riley Leonard also had 80 yards, 14 carries on the ground. Jadarian Price, 37 yards, 10 carries. Jeremiah Love, 19 yards, 6 carries. So Facian, 9 yards, 2 carries. Facian had also had 46 yards, 4 receptions. Collins, a touchdown. Bo Collins, a touchdown, 13-yard touchdown reception. Evans had 22 yards, 3 receptions. Defensively, physical. Jack Kaiser, 6 tackles, a sack. Watts had 7 total tackles. Schuler, 8 total tackles. Moore, 5 total tackles. Chihuahua 4 total tackles and a sack. Heinisch, 3 total tackles and a sack. They were all over Gunnar Stockton. They had, I think, 4 sacks in this ball game. Notre Dame did. This team was physical and ready to go. Total yards, 296 total yards for Georgia, 244 for Notre Dame. Passing, 234 for Georgia, 90 passing for Notre Dame. Rushing, 154 yards rushing compared to their 62 rushing yards. 4.9 yards per play for Georgia, 4.0 for Notre Dame. 4 for 4. So those are some positive circle moments for Georgia and Notre Dame. Some positives for Notre Dame. They were more physical on both sides of the ball, line of scrimmage, and 54 rushing yards. They could run the ball on this team with Riley Leonard, with Price, and with Love. 4 for 14 on third down efficiency was the negative circle moments. They could not convert on third down. They couldn't do it. They could not convert on third down. They couldn't convert on third down. So I think that right there, for me right there, kind of was just right now. But hang on. They did really, really good on first and second down chunk plays. And Georgia gave up a bunch of those to Notre Dame. So 4 for 14 was a negative circle moment, and a negative right there was 10 penalties for 75 yards. Notre Dame's got to minimize those penalties. But other than that, Notre Dame looked good overall. Physically, on the ground, just dominated Georgia in the trenches. And I think that was where the game was going to go. And they out-physical Georgia, and that's how they won the ball game. And Marcus Freeman just plain out simply just coached Kirby Smart. He did. He out-coached Kirby Smart. Let's talk about that. Example, substitution. They were going to punt on their own territory. All of a sudden, Marcus Freeman calls his own number and calls his own play where they all start substituting late. Brings everybody out. Kirby Smart starts substituting late. Riley Leonard does a hand clap, and he makes Georgia jump all sides. Kirby Smart saying, you can't do that. You can't do that. Yes, you can. Marcus Freeman outcoached him there. He outcoached him in a lot of areas, made him jump in a lot of areas. I think penalties were a concern for Notre Dame, and third down efficiency was a concern for Notre Dame. They got to pass the ball a little bit better, but I think winning on the ground and trenches has been working for them all season so far, and it worked for them against Georgia. Can it work for them against the Orange Bowl? Who knows? But this Notre Dame team is solid. They're physical. They're tough. And they do not need to be underestimated in this Orange Bowl against Penn State Thursday night. So let's watch out for Notre Dame. Marcus Freeman is coaching like a madman. He's recruiting at a high level in the portal and in high school recruiting. He's doing quite well. He's done something that Brian Kelly has not done yet, and that's won a New Year's Six Bowl. He has finally won a New Year's Six Bowl with Notre Dame, and he has done it as an independent school. Now, Brian Kelly has made it to the national championship, and he's made it to the playoffs twice. Can he make it to the national championship and then win the national championship? Who knows? But the way that Notre Dame's playing right now, they have a legitimate shot at doing that, the way they are playing. Final score was 23-10. Notre Dame just outclassed Georgia in this ball game. 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central. Notre Dame's got to play Penn State. And let's see in the semifinal Orange Bowl who can come away with that one. That's going to be a very physical and fun game Thursday night that I cannot wait to cover. Let's talk about Georgia really quick and what's going on right there. Georgia just got outclassed. They got out physical up in the line of scrimmage. And I think offense and play calling has a lot to do with it. I think their kryptonite all year has been receivers dropping footballs, and it showed in this game. Dylan Bell was wide open. Gunnar Stockton leveled it up, threw it up, wide open ball, first down, big chunk play, and Dylan Bell drops it in the red zone. He drops it in the red zone, wide open. And then the next play, Dylan Bell catches one with two Notre Dame guys on him. So it doesn't make a lot of sense now, doesn't it? Now, Georgia's already trying to fix that problem. They brought in Zachariah Branch from USC through the transfer portal. That's going to help a ton. Dominic Lovett, getting him to catch more passes and getting him to stay another year would help for this receiver room as well. Dylan Bell being there and learning. They just need some more elite receivers. Training Bell and training Lovett along with Branch, and then getting some more receivers from the portal and recruiting some freshman receivers in February next month is going to be a game changer for them. Not only that, play calling was a huge miss in this ball game. Mike Bobo, to me, is not the answer for Georgia on offense. I think they need a new offensive coordinator. I think they need a new play caller to bring them some more excitement and bringing them some more plays and getting them some chunk plays down the middle and running the football, bringing some smash mouth run football, because they have not been a running team this year at all. They found some life with Nate Frazier in this ball game on a couple of good drives, but not the whole time. I'm used to Georgia running the ball down people's throats and playing some hard smash mouth, running the football, counter, misdirection, up the middle, draw plays, and they're not doing that on the ground. They haven't done it all year, and I think that's where they need to get back to. And Georgia did not look like the same offensive team and smash mouth running the football team that they once were. Defensively, did not look all that impressive either, which I'm surprised. Glenn Schumann, honestly, is a good defensive coordinator. Do everything you can to keep him. I think that they played good defensively in this game, but they got tired because they were on the field majority of the time. And not only were they on the field the majority of the time, they were getting outclassed in chunk plays as well by the run game of Notre Dame. And not only that, it just wears you out. So that's what happened with Georgia in this game. Let's talk about Georgia really quick before we move on. Georgia up front just got outclassed. They got out physicaled. Gunnar Stockton, 234 yards, a touchdown, 20 for 32. Gunnar Stockton was a positive circle moment for me because he kept fighting. He showed life. He showed promise, and he showed that he could be an elite, that he could be a solid quarterback, kind of like how Carson Beck was last year. He could be that next year for this Georgia Bulldogs team. He can do it. He just has to really throw. He just has to throw and get some receivers to catch for him. That's what's got to happen for this football team. He's got to have some guys to catch for the football, and he's got to have some guys make some good plays for him and help him out. Because Gunnar Stockton could be a good quarterback because he made some good decisions and he threw the ball well as a redshirt freshman and redshirt sophomore, and he can do it. He just got to have some help around him. He's got Oscar Delp. Oscar Delp's going to be is a great tight end. He just got to have some help in the passing game with receivers. With Zachariah Branch now there, Dominic Lovett and Dylan Bell have to get better. And Arian Smith, a good, solid speedster wide receiver, has to get better at catching while accelerating and catching while running routes. While running those routes. He's got to get better at that. And he can get better at that. And Gunnar Stockton can deliver good balls to them. And then with a good play caller on top of that and a blend of running the football, Georgia will be back to normal. And who's going to stop Georgia on offense? And that defense will blend in with that offense, right? So Georgia will be back. They just got to recruit better. They got to get some more elite receivers. And not only that, they got to get a good play caller to expand that playbook for Georgia. That's what they need. And I think they can get that next year, maybe. Final score was 23-10. Georgia got rocked in this ball game. 11-3 is where they finished their season. They made it to the Sugar Bowl. And, well, let's see if they can make it back to the playoff and be competitive and could go for a national title next season. 23-10, Notre Dame's got to go to the semifinal against Penn State on the Orange Bowl, 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central on ESPN. Georgia is out. And we got one SEC team remaining in the Final Four, 2 Big Ten, and 1 independent for the semifinals. That was the College Football Playoff Quarterfinal Bowl games and my recap of the quarterfinal games for this past week. And we will preview and predict the semifinals here in a little bit, but let's discuss this because it is a huge topic going on right now. Is the SEC, quote-unquote, dead? Before we move on to the semifinal preview and predictions, and we won't take a whole bunch of time on this, but it's a good thing that we can post, and we can post a clip on it on Instagram and X, and you can tell me what you think on my thoughts. Dave Portnoy said on X, the president of Barstool Sports and Michigan alumni, said that the SEC is dead. The SEC is dead. And here's why he said that. He said that NIL, that beforehand that the SEC was paying players behind the scenes illegally before NIL and before the portal and everything took effect around 2021, 2022, right? And I will agree with that. I think the SEC did that. I will agree with that take. I think the SEC did do that, and that's why they got the majority of their talent, and that's why they had that 15, 16-year dominant run with winning national titles and being in it almost every year. And they're still in it every year. I mean, they got Texas into the College Football Playoff in the semifinal Friday night against Ohio State. Now the playing field's even a little bit because the past 2 to 3 years, the SEC has kind of been okay, right? Just not bad, not good, just okay. While the Big Ten and Big 12 and ACC and other conferences have stepped up and have used the resources like NIL and transfer portal to their advantages to level up with the SEC and compete with the SEC. Now, the SEC has got money. They're using their resources. They're using the NIL, and they're using the portal, but not to the extent of a Big Ten right at this moment. The playing field has been even, and that's what Dave Portnoy has said. The playing field has been even. Everywhere in college football is now a site to go to. I mean, there's going to be a lot of more teams competing against the SEC. There's going to be more talent level on the same playing field with other conferences against SEC football teams. And I think that's where Dave Portnoy is getting his takes at. So in that regard, I agree. I agree with Dave Portnoy on that take. Do I think the SEC is dead? No, I disagree with Dave Portnoy on that wholeheartedly. I don't think the SEC is dead. However, I do think that there are, well, I think that the playing field has been even leveled. The NIL has been used a lot, and resources have been used a lot more for other conferences to combat what the SEC does talent-wise. And I think that the playing field on football field is even. If you don't believe me, look at the bowl games this year. I mean, the only SEC teams that won their bowl games were Ole Miss, LSU, Missouri, Arkansas, Florida. Ole Miss, and Vanderbilt. Ole Miss, Arkansas, LSU, Vanderbilt, Florida, Missouri. Those are the only teams that have won their bowl games in the SEC postseason. Other than that, in the big-time bowl games, the Big Ten has shown them up. 4-1 Big Ten over SEC in postseason and bowl games / playoffs. Ohio State beat Tennessee and dominated Tennessee at home. Michigan played a close game against Alabama in the Relia Quest Bowl in a playoff rematch. It was close score-wise, but overall, Michigan dominated Alabama on the line of scrimmage and on the ground. Bama turned the ball over 3 times in that game. USC, Texas A&M in the Las Vegas Bowl. I was in Mississippi covering that one. In the Las Vegas Bowl, we saw Texas A&M blow a lead, and USC comes back and wins and ices it and seals the win late. USC beat Texas A&M. We saw Illinois and South Carolina in a heated Citrus Bowl play each other close, and then Illinois ended up defensively and combine that with explosive plays by Josh McCray, ended up outrunning South Carolina and beating South Carolina in the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl. Before Missouri came back and won, Iowa was beating Missouri in the Music City Bowl in Nashville. I'm telling you this for a reason. The Big Ten, talent-wise, has matched up with the SEC, with the NIL, and transfer portal resources and recruiting resources with NIL mainly. And that is why the Big Ten and other conferences has created an even level playing field. It wasn't just the Big Ten. Notre Dame, independent, routed Georgia on the field, dominated Georgia on the field. Excuse me. Oklahoma got beat by Navy. Navy beat them and came back late and beat them in the Armed Forces Bowl. Texas beat Clemson, and Texas counts because Texas is in the College Football Playoff right now. But Texas has a shot to get eliminated by Ohio State Friday night. Talent level is everything. Do I think the SEC is dead? No. What does the SEC have to do to come back in 2025 stronger? Well, during the portal in the spring, because the portal's now kind of closed for December window, in the spring football window, and in recruiting class for February, I think Texas has the #1 recruiting class right now. So that's an SEC school right there. For SEC schools, you got to out-recruit some of these Big Ten and other conference schools. Bring the best talent in. Bring unbelievable NIL packages in for some of these players to come in and use those NIL packages in the SEC to line up that talent again so you can match up talent-wise with the Big Ten. Because I want to tell you what, the best and most talented team in college football is not in the SEC. it's in the Big Ten, and it's Ohio State right now, and they're probably going to compete for a national title. So, look, we always used to say this. We always used to say that in the SEC's middle teams, middle-of-the-road teams, would beat the Big Ten's best. The past couple of seasons, because the Big Ten is competing for a national title this year, and there was a Big Ten national title winner last year in Michigan. You look and you're saying to yourself, okay, well, in this sense, if you look at it in this sense, the Big Ten's middle-of-the-road teams would beat the SEC's top teams. The past 2 seasons, that is the truth. Is the SEC dead? No. The SEC is alive and well. I think they're going to rebound, maybe. Let's see. I think they're going to rebound with NIL packages and transfer portal packages and recruiting packages. Yes. They just got to get better talent-wise again. It's an even level playing field, and the SEC's got to level up again. That's all. They're not dead, but it is an even level playing field, so I will agree with Dave Portnoy on that. That's what they got to do in 2025 to compete again and to put more teams in and to be the best conference in college football again. Because I'm going to say this, right now in the past 2 seasons, the best conference in college football has been the Big Ten Conference. Hands down. That's it. And that is my thoughts on that. That is my answer. Tell me what you guys think. I agree with Portnoy on the Big Ten leveling the playing field, but I disagree with the SEC being dead. I think they're alive and well, but I do think that the best conference in college football the past 2 seasons has been the Big Ten. Let me guys know what you think on X and on Instagram at Pigskin_Frenzy. Message me, Joel Norris. Message me on those platforms. Let's preview and predict the College Football Playoff Semifinal Cotton Bowl and Orange Bowl matchups here. 2 games. Let's preview and predict those before we conclude today's episode of Pigskin Frenzy. Let's talk about the Orange Bowl College Football Playoff Semifinal Orange Bowl matchup. Here we go. Notre Dame 13-1 versus Penn State 13-2. 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central kick on ESPN, Miami, Florida, in the Orange Bowl semifinal playoff game. This is going to be a physical game. Penn State is explosive on the run, and I think that is where a lot of teams, right? A lot of teams get everything twisted because it's like, okay, Notre Dame has slowed down Indiana and slow down Georgia's run. But Penn State is a better running team than both of those this season. They got a 2-headed dragon with Nick Singleton and Katron Allen. And on the flip side, Notre Dame's pretty explosive on the ground as well, and they're physical on both sides of the ball with the line of scrimmage. They got Jadarian Price, they have Jeremiah Love, and they also have a running quarterback in Riley Leonard who can run the football quite well and with some heart. So let's see what happens in this game. 2 amazing coaches with Marcus Freeman and James Franklin. It's going to be a wild game Thursday night, 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central kick on ESPN. Let's get to Notre Dame's keys and let's discuss this game. Notre Dame's keys are quite simple. Number 1, win the line of scrimmage battle. If you're Notre Dame, you have to win the line of scrimmage battle. Penn State got sacked 4 or 5 times. Drew Wilder got sacked 4 or 5 times, and Boise State ran wild on some plays on the line of scrimmage. Notre Dame is a more physical team than Boise State. Agreed. There's no doubt about that. If they do that and win the line of scrimmage battle and win in the trenches like they've done the past 2 games, Notre Dame will most likely win this ball game and go to the national championship. So win the line of scrimmage battle. Number 2, you got to slow down their running game. Penn State has had 405 rushing yards total in the last 2 college football playoff games. Notre Dame, however, has only had 125 rushing yards allowed total in the last 2 college football playoff games. That's quite insane if you're Notre Dame. 125 yards total. That's solid if you're a rushing defense. So something's got to give here in this ball game. Exploit their explosiveness, slow down their running game, slow down the 2-headed dragon, and you should be fine in this ball game. And number 3, establish the running game of your own. You got Jadarian Price. You got Jeremiah Love. Jeremiah Love's a little bit beat up, so you're going to go to Jadarian Price a little bit more in this game, but run Jeremiah Love when you have to. Establish the run of game effectively, and you should be fine. Also establish it with Riley Leonard. Riley Leonard can get some yards on the ground for you. Run the ball quite effectively, and if you do that, you should be fine in this ball game. Those are Notre Dame's keys. Let's talk about Penn State's keys in this one. Number 1, simple. They're kind of similar to Notre Dame's keys. Run the football. Establish the running game with Katron Allen and Nick Singleton. Those are some 2 good running backs, and they have been explosive in this playoff. So run the ball with both of those and create that and create a balanced attack through the pass with that. So establish that running game first, and you should be fine in this ball game. Number 2, on top of that, win the line of scrimmage battle. Out physical Notre Dame, and that's going to be hard because Notre Dame's a very good physical football team. Out physical them on up front in the line of scrimmage and win the line of scrimmage battle in this ball game. If you can do that, you have a shot at winning this game. And number 3, a huge key here, this is what's probably going to win you the game. Penn State's defense needs to pressure and contain Riley Leonard. If you can contain Riley Leonard in this game, cause some chaos, even cause some sacks or some turnovers in this game, Penn State can win this ball game and punch their ticket to the national championship in Atlanta. So those are the 3 keys that I got for Penn State. Some of the questions that I got for Penn State are, 1, can you create that explosiveness on the ground like you've done the past 2 games? Notre Dame's a good defense and a better defense than both of those teams you faced. Can you do that? And number 3, can you match up with him physically there? Can you protect Drew Allard? Because that's a concern for me as well. Can you match up with him physically up front and protect Drew Allard? And can you establish those running games and explosiveness on the ground if you're Penn State? The questions that I got for Notre Dame are, 1, can you slow down their running game? And can you avoid those explosive plays through the ground there? And number 2, can you let Riley Leonard have a breakout game? Can you let Riley Leonard create some explosive runs for you? Can you create explosive runs there? And can you win on the line of scrimmage like you've done the past 2 games as well? So those are the couple of questions that I have for Notre Dame and the questions that I have for Penn State in this game. Who do I got winning this ball game Thursday night? I think this game's going to be close. I think Notre Dame's going to give Penn State a run for their money. I think they're going to create explosive plays. I think they're going to be physical in this ball game. However, I think Penn State has a difference maker in this game, and I think Tyler Warren is that difference maker. He has played lights out. He has been kind of a jackknife for them in shovel passes and explosive plays of this offense. They're physical. I think that Notre Dame's going to give them a run for their money. However, I think Penn State will find a way to out-physical them in the trenches on defense and find a way to get some pressure on Riley Leonard. I think Penn State's going to find a way to squeak by with a win here and defeat Notre Dame close. Notre Dame's the favorite. I think that Penn State wins this ball game outright and wins 28-21. Penn State 28, Notre Dame 21. Penn State defeats Notre Dame, and Penn State goes to the national championship game in Atlanta, and we will see them January 20th, and James Franklin wins another big game, is undefeated in playoff, and goes undefeated in playoffs 3-0, and will win another big game and go to his first ever national championship appearance. Penn State wins 28-21 and beats Notre Dame to win the Orange Bowl semifinal playoff Thursday night. Last but not least, the College Football Playoff Cotton Bowl semifinal. Friday night, 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central kick on ESPN. Texas versus Ohio State. The battle of 2 talented teams. Top 5 talent composite teams in college football. This is going to be insane. Ohio State 12-2, Texas 13-2. Something's got to give here. Both physical football teams. Who is going to out-talent the other and out-physical the other? There's going to be a lot of things there. Steve Sarkisian in his second straight semifinal game. Ryan Day in another semifinal game. And he's in the Cotton Bowl for the second straight year. Last year didn't go so well against Missouri. They didn't have the talent like they do now. Let's see what happens in this ball game. This game's going to be close. and it's going to be raucous in Dallas in AT&T Stadium, 100, most likely 80 to 90,000 strong, maybe even 100,000 strong in that stadium. Going to be packed out for this game Friday night. A lot of questions are going to be answered in this game. Can Texas can play 4 quarters of football? Can Ohio State start off fast? And I think that's what we're looking for. And some of those games that we're looking for in this game, it's going to be electric in this semifinal. Let's go with Ohio State's keys here, and let's talk about this game. Number one, if you're Ohio State, you start off fast. You start off like you did against Tennessee, and you start off like you did against Oregon. And you start off fast, and you create explosive plays with those receivers and on the ground with Henderson and Judkins. If you can do that, you should be fine in this ball game. Number two, force turnovers. Force Quinn Ewers to turn the ball over. Fumbles with Wisner. Interceptions with Quinn Ewers, and you force them to turn the ball over. You can force them to turn the ball over. You should be fine in this ball game. Number three, you got to win the line of scrimmage battle. You got to out-physical Texas. Texas is a very physical football team, and I think this game, most importantly, will probably be won in the line of scrimmage. I think football is a game that is determined in the line of scrimmage, and it is important. It's still important today as it was back in 2007, right? So win the line of scrimmage battle if you're Ohio State against this physical Texas team, and you should be fine in this ball game. I think it's crucial in this game. Those are Ohio State's keys. Here are Texas's keys. Number one, do not let them start off fast. Do not let them start off fast. If you let them start off fast, it's over pretty much. I mean, I think so. If you let them start off fast, it's over, and you will not win. That is how I view it. Number two, win the line of scrimmage battle. You got to out-physical this Ohio State team. Win in the trenches on both sides of the ball. Texas has got a huge offensive line and a beefy defensive line. They are physical and one of the most physical, probably top 5 in physicality in college football, especially in not just the SEC, but in college football, period. They can win on the line of scrimmage. They have done it almost all season, and besides Georgia. Can they do it in this game? That's a huge key. Win the line of scrimmage battle. And then number three, establish the running game with Wisner. Establish the running game with Wisner. Run the ball effectively. Tire out that Ohio State defense. And you can try to punch your ticket that way to the national championship game in Atlanta. Questions that I got for Ohio State. Can you start off fast against a very physical team and a very sound defense like Texas? Because I think this is the best defense that Ohio State has faced so far all season. Texas has got a better defense than probably all the teams they have faced. Penn State's defense is elite. I will say Penn State's and Tom Allen's defense is probably the best defense they've faced so far. But I think so far, Texas has got a better defense, and I think that right now, Texas's defense is probably the best and most physical defense they have faced so far yet. That's number one. Can Ohio State start off fast? And can they, not only that, win the line of scrimmage battle against that solid defense? Can they win the line of scrimmage battle and out-physical Texas? That's the two questions that I got for Ohio State in this game. Because I think if they win the line of scrimmage battle and they end up playing just as physical, then those explosive plays with Jeremiah Smith, Amike Abuka, G. Scott Jr., Henderson, and Judkins will take effect and will be no problem for Ohio State's offense, right? So can they win the line of scrimmage battle and start off fast? Texas, can they establish the running game? Can they establish their running game and run the ball effectively? And not only that, can they not let them start off fast, but also be out physical Ohio State? So win the line of scrimmage battle. Can they do that and not let them start off fast and get those explosive plays early in this game? I think that's crucial. It's very crucial. And bonus question for Texas, can they not take their foot off the pedal? Can they keep their foot off the gas pedal and play 4 full quarters, 60 minutes of football? Because if they can play that brand of football, it's going to be hard to beat this Texas team because they are talented. Just like Ohio State, they are a top 5 talent composite team in college football, hands down. Can they do that? Those are the questions that I got for both teams. Who do I got winning this ball game Friday night? I think this game's going to be close. I think it's going to be closer than the other two games for Ohio State. I think Texas is going to give them a run for their money. I think Quinn Ewers is going to create some of those explosive plays. I think they're going to run the ball effectively. I think they're going to give them a run for their money up on the line of scrimmage. I think Texas will find a way to make this game close physically and get them on some plays in the line of scrimmage. However, I think the way it's going right now, Ohio State is just so explosive. They are creating those explosive plays on the ground. Will Howard is playing lights out, and he's playing like a madman right now. That defense is playing well and sound. I think they find a way to pressure Quinn Ewers, get some sacks on Quinn Ewers, and force a turnover or two late. And Ohio State finds a way to beat Texas in the Cotton Bowl and goes to the national championship in Atlanta. Ohio State wins this game close. I would say by a score of probably 35-28. Ohio State 35, Texas 28. Ohio State defeats Texas 35-28, and Ohio State goes to the national championship against Penn State in an all Big Ten national championship game on January 20th in Atlanta, Georgia, in the national championship game. Ohio State defeats Texas to win the Cotton Bowl and goes to the national championship against Penn State. That was my college football playoff semifinal preview predictions. That just about does it for Pigskin Frenzy. Guys, a big thank you for taking some time out of your Tuesday to just sit back, watch, and listen to some college football coverage presented by me. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, like each episode, leave comments down below. Spotify, Podbean, and Apple. All you got to do is just share around with others and follow on there as well. X, Instagram, and Facebook, just type in Pigskin Frenzy. Follow all the pages there. You're going to get episode updates. You're going to get news and highlights from across college and NFL football. You're going to get trivia questions on Instagram stories, going to answer today's college football question, as well as all things of today for Pigskin Frenzy. X and Instagram, not Facebook, at Pigskin_Frenzy on both channels. Joel Norris at Pigskin_Frenzy on both channels, X and Instagram. The website, www.pigskinfrenzy.weebly.com for all things up to date for Pigskin Frenzy. More on that coming soon. Guys, a big thank you for taking some time out of your Tuesday. A new camera angle. It's gonna be a little bit more new coming up here shortly. Probably get some more equipment by Thursday's episode of Pigskin Frenzy, and we will be back Thursday with episode 188 of Pigskin Frenzy on Thursday, an NFL edition of Pigskin Frenzy. It is playoff football for Pigskin Frenzy for the NFL. We're going to cover all first-round playoff games for both the NFC and AFC games. Going to preview and predict all the wild card round matchups for this weekend, and we're going to recap the top matchups for Week 18 for this weekend, for this past weekend of NFL slate of games, and the NFL injury report as well. All that and more for the Pigskin Frenzy, NFL edition of Pigskin Frenzy on Thursday. So until Pigskin Frenzy, NFL edition on Thursday for playoff football on Thursday, I'm Joel Norris signing off. We will see you then. Guys, we wanted to dedicate this episode to all the people who are affected by that horrible tragedy, terror attack tragedy in New Orleans. Our thoughts and prayers, and we are praying for those families. We are with those families. Our hearts are with New Orleans, and we stand with New Orleans and against that horrible, we condemn that horrible, heinous attack. It was awful. We are with those families, and we are praying for those families, and we're praying for everybody who listens to this show. Thank you for listening in. I'm Joel Norris signing off. We will see you Thursday. For everybody out there, please and always stay the course.